Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. We're glad you decided to check us out. God has a specific message of hope for your life and mine today. So listen up.
They know where you live. They feed on your flaws. They drain your time. And they never leave you alone.
Hey, I need to run a few errands. Can you watch my dog? Again.
Cool. Well, thank y'all so much, Josue. Good to have you and Nani with us. In case y'all didn't miss the announcement this last week, Josue and Nani are going to be coming on helping us with our worship. Josue is going to be leading us in worship for the next month. So make sure you come by and say hey and get to know this awesome couple. I've known Josue for a few years. I just met Nani. Okay, you're the better half. I love you, but you are. I love you, Josue, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. So good to have you guys with us. I went outside and I was going to just like wring out my shirt sleeve there. And Tiffany was like, dude, we got to have like t-shirts around here somewhere. So just go get one. So, okay, I match you now, Susanna. These are our Love the Bay t-shirts. And it's really cool anyway because this week with Love the Bay, we're actually starting another cool thing. This Thursday, we're going to be meeting with some young men over at Discovery Elementary. We were able to be made known of a need at Discovery Elementary for some of their sixth graders who needed some positive male role models in their life. And it came around to me, and I contacted Carrie Castillo, who's the principal over there, and she was like, yes, I need somebody to come in here and do this. And I'll be honest with you, when Josue's singing I'm Not Enough, we're all singing that song, and I'm going, yeah, I really don't feel like enough to do this, because sixth grade boys, how's that going to work, and all that type of stuff, I'm not enough for that. But it's amazing how God has just put this all together. And this week we'll have about 5 or 6 guys that will be going over to meet with some kids at Discovery Elementary to begin once a month type of a thing, investing in young men. Because the truth is, I'll be honest. I mean, if you're from Palm Bay, if you're not, I'll share this with you. I mean, we've had a lot of violence in our young adult community here. A lot of them have been this neighborhood and other places around Palm Bay. We've had a lot of young men lose their lives in violence. And the truth is, I work with young men with a ministry called Heart Ministries, helping at-risk kids, and we play football with young men in the community. There's a guy named John Cunningham who started it. He's blind. We've had him here before. And we get people when they're 13 to 18, and then now some of them are in their 20s and stuff that we're investing in. And that's cool, and that's great. But, he and I went to visit kids in prison that had come through that situation. I mean, and we went up to Sharps and visited, I guess there was about 5 or 6, and God just started tapping on me and said, man, it's not enough. You're not enough. It's not enough just to start at that point. So, it's amazing how this opportunity came around just as God was moving our heart for us. And also it's been great to see guys step up and become a part of this, and if you're a guy out there, I mean, we got 5 or 6, but we can take more, that's awesome. So if you feel like God is speaking to you and say, look, I need to invest in these young men because this has burdened my heart for our community, this is an open door for us that I'm going to tell you 9 or 10 years ago would have been unheard of. Really, for schools to be open to say, hey, we need positive male role models, and we don't care. They can be from the church. That's fine. You've always heard this animosity between school and churches. I think some of that wall is breaking down a little bit right now. And we're going to work under the authority of them. We're not going to come in there and just, take on the world. We're going to be positive role models in their life. We're not going to be silent about our faith, but we're not going to try to coerce anybody or anything like that. There's rules that we have to work under, and we're going to work under those, and there is room for us to work. So this is really cool. So that's looking good. So it kind of ties in with the Love the Bay shirt, to get around here as well. But we're going through this series called Relational Vampires, and if you haven't been in our church, oh yeah, thank you. I left that. Thank you, Tiffany. There's my watch and my, oh yeah, I took it, I left it. So anyway, I warned these people over here I'm a scatterbrain. So, I'm warning the rest of you that don't know. So anyway, all right, so we're going through relational vampires, and that may sound like a weird title, but you know, when you think about what it actually is, we all have those people in our lives. It's those people in your life that come up to you, and you see them coming, and they just suck the life out of you. You know what I mean? They just do. I mean, it might be we dealt with people who are controlling people, who you just got to do it my way. And, you know, and it just all the time on you, and stuff like that. And we dealt with that the first week. And we say that, look, controlling people have one thing in common. They have one person, somebody that lets them be controlling. You know, and that when we put someone else in the controlling position of our lives and not Christ, we have therefore made them kind of an idol in our lives. So regardless of the person who's in our life, you know, there's authority, which is given. You know, you give people authority, it's limited, and it's defined. Controlling person, it's undefined, it's unlimited, and it's usually taken. You know, it might be your shoes one week, it might be how you dress the next. But the truth is that God has established authority. We in our sin nature try to take control, and we need to honor God and his authority. And so we talked about how to deal with that. We talked about also how do you deal with critical people. You know, there's people that no matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough. You know, and we talked about that and strategies of how to deal with that. We talked about gossiping people last week. You know, gossiping, how it's funny. You see somebody who knows the inside story and they start coming to you. There's a little charge of energy because you figure, I'm going to find something out. Well, that's false energy. You know, as what I think that is, it's false energy because actually it's going to suck the life out of you, but it just takes a long time and it's real sneaky about how it's done. It's always negative. It never solves the problem. And it never gives you the whole truth. And yet we think if we go to this person and that person and this person, we get 15 half-truths. Somehow we can combine them into a whole truth. That never works that way. It doesn't work that way. That math doesn't work. You can't apply it that way. All it does is suck the life out of you and take you away from what Christ wants you to do. And today we'll be ending this series talking about hypocritical people. You may have a problem with people in their life that say, well, they're a hypocrite. You have a problem with that? Does that bother you? When you run into somebody who does one thing, they say one thing, they do another, does it bug you? It bugs me too. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, it bugs a lot of people in the world. You have a lot in common with people who are outside the church. You know, because in 2007, Gabe Lyons and Dave Kinnaman wrote a book called Unchristian, and it was based on, I would say, about 10,000 interviews with people who were millennial age, the millennial generation, who had some experience with church and had left the church. And they gave 4 really big characteristics, big problems that they had with church people. And one of them was that they were hypocritical. They were hypocrites. They would say one thing, tell you to do it, and then they would go out in the world and do whatever they wanted to do, and it would be different than what they would tell you to do. They would expect from you, but they would not expect that from themselves. You know, and so the truth is you're not alone. The millennials are not alone. You know what someone else who has that in common with you? Jesus. Jesus didn't like hypocrites. Jesus had to deal with hypocrites in his day and time. There were special kinds of hypocrites. It's not just everything that you think that we'll talk about today. But in one particular place in Matthew chapter 23, in verse 27, 28, we show where he deals with some people that are hypocrites. And he gives us some understanding about what really the problem with the hypocrite really is. Okay? And I think you have to know that, because if you don't, if you don't know about the problem, you're going to approach the problem wrong. But Jesus is talking to the Pharisees, which are the religious leaders of the day, and in his nice, special way, I say that because everybody talks about Jesus. Oh, he's just so nice. Jesus is so polite. You read any of the things that Jesus said? Jesus is a pretty blunt guy. You know, I like him. He's cool. That's a good thing because I'm following him. And I hope you are too. But anyway, in Matthew chapter 23, if you've turned there by now, if you haven't, you can get on your phone. You can look it up there, or you can follow on the screens. It says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of bones of the dead and everything unclean." That's pretty harsh metaphor right there. That's pretty difficult. You know, with whitewashed tombs. So basically what he was saying is, on the inside, you're dead. Now, you're trying to look great on the outside. You're trying to look really cool on the outside. You're whitewashing the outside so nobody that sees you will be offended. Anybody who doesn't get too close to you, they're okay. They're pretty cool. They'll have a good opinion of you. But on the inside, you're dead. And see, here's what's even worse is what you realize if you look historically, you know that Palestinian graves at that time were actually whitewashed on specific days. And it was due to a cultic kind of religion. So what he was even saying even further to them is like, you know, hey, you're like those guys who worship other gods. You're unclean. You're so unclean. He was making the comparison to a cult to them. So not only was it hitting them hard that, hey, you're dead on the inside. You're like whitewashed tombs. You're trying to make things pretty on the outside, but you're dead on the inside. It was so bad. You're not only that, but you're unclean. He was comparing to something that would be unclean for them to even be around because they wouldn't want to be around that type of thing. You know, in verse 28, it continues on, and he says, in the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. On the outside, you look great. You look like you got it all together. You know everything to say. But on the inside, that's not what it is. And a lot of times I think it's tough because we look at a hypocrite or somebody that we would say is a hypocrite, and we can get angry with them. Oh, you tell me to do that. Well, I see you doing that. And we get really angry with it. You can get angry with them. You get frustrated with them. It's almost like they're doing things on purpose just to mess you up. You almost feel that way. I know I do sometimes. But here's the truth about hypocrisy, being a hypocrite. Being a hypocrite is a prison where you are afraid to be yourself. You get that? You're afraid of what you are being known by other people. And you live in this little box and you're afraid to let it get out. It's almost like you're in this little bitty room and you got all these boards up and you know all this stuff and you're afraid that if something kind of shakes loose and then light comes through that somebody's going to see what's in there and then they won't like you, they won't care about you, they won't love you. Something's wrong. You don't feel the freedom to let that out. So you build this wall. You whitewash that tomb. And the truth is you're trying to look better than you really are. In a way, you're kind of trying to lie to everybody around you. Now, it's out of fear, but it's still wrong. You know, and here's the thing about those lies that you do to create this whitewashed tomb. At some point, they get so intricate and so complicated that you really can get to a point that you don't remember what the lie was and what the truth was, and you can't keep your story straight. You ever been in that situation? Maybe where you had some friends and you told a lie or something in one place, and then that you didn't think that was going to get out to somebody else. Somebody else heard it, and then you had to tell another lie to make that okay, and then you had to tell another one to make that one okay, and then somebody else heard something, and it got way bigger, and more people knew about it than you ever really wanted to, and then you had to tell more stuff in front of more people, and then all of a sudden, here you are, you're in this tough situation. I remember a story a few years ago about a guy who coached at UCF, George O'Leary. He was going to get his dream job at Notre Dame, and it came to find out that on his resume, he had lied about one of his accomplishments. And when that lie became known and people researched that out, he lost his job at Notre Dame in shame in front of the nation. See, here's the problem. When the lies become bigger and they all have to tell more to more people and all that stuff, it gets bigger, it gets wider, it gets grander. The stool gets taller that you're standing, the pedestal you're putting yourself on gets taller, and then when it comes back to haunt you, comes back to you, and it's knocked out from under you, you fall, and you can fall hard. But it's a prison, and it's a trap, and people get in that honestly. They really do. It's not an honest thing, but people get into it honestly because they're just scared. And that sounds okay, but it's really not, because it's very, very, very dangerous. But that's what hypocrites, and see, for Jesus, it's not just the guy who said, hey, you should go to the gym. It's not just that guy. Oh my, did I burp in front? Oh my goodness, I did. Mom, I'm glad you're not here. I was preaching one time when I was 13, and I said the word butt from the pulpit in South Alabama in the early 80s. And my mother was sitting about right over this way, and I saw her go down. It's in the pew, and I saw her do this number right here. Literally. And I was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said but. He said but in front of everybody. Now I've said it thrice. Okay, goodness. All right, let's get back to stories. Let's get back to where we are. The truth is, it's not just that guy that says, hey, go work at the gym. And he's like, never worked out in his life. It's not the dude that says, hey, that GM of that football team should do X, Y, Z. And I just tell them how to do it. And this guy that can't even run the speedway on the corner. It's not that guy. Jesus has a problem with people who are hypocrites who represent his name. Look, you appear to look as people. On the outside, you appear to people as righteous. That's not just being right. What he's saying, you appear on the outside like you're right with me. Like you're my representative. Like you represent my Father. But on the inside, you're not. That's a problem. Here's the deal. The problem with hypocrisy that bothers him is that what a hypocrite does, they try to be something they're not. Religious hypocrites are people who are trying to fake being alive. You're faking life. That's the problem that Jesus has. He says, when hypocrites, they're trying to fake being alive. You're not alive until you're connected with Christ. You're existing and you're breathing and your heart's pumping and you make decisions and you see colors or whatever and you see things and you may laugh and stuff like that. But I'm here to tell you, until you've joined in a relationship with Christ, you are not alive. That's just existence. And we see it everywhere. And people just add stuff onto it. They just add stuff onto it. I'll tell you just a thing with me. I tell you guys that sometimes, I told you this earlier. Sometimes I suffer with depression. I do. I battle that off and on for years, And one of the traps of depression is because if you don't recognize what's coming on, you can just start trying to do little things to make yourself feel better. I'm just going to buy a shirt. Let's go do that. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play video games. I get a little windy over here or something like that. Sometimes you'll do what you do to forget how you feel instead of dealing with who you are. But see, here's the thing. When Jesus said the truth will set you free, what he's trying to tell you, part of that truth is who he is and who you are. And telling you that I'm the judge of that, I have a remedy for who you are. So on the inside, you may feel dead, and you may feel like you've got to say, hey, I'm okay, I got it all together, everybody else. And Jesus is like, I see you, I see that, I've got a plan for it, and part of the gospel truth is for you to own that. Yeah, I am messed up. That's okay. It's not okay in the long-term scheme, but it is fine. Nobody's surprised by that. That's what's funny about hypocrites a lot of times. They think they're fooling everybody, but they're really not. Things are not going well on the inside for them because they're faking life. You're dead on the inside, but you're trying to look alive on the outside. So why does that bug Jesus so much? One, because you're living in a prison that's not free, and it's for you. If you're the hypocrite and you're doing that, that's a bad place for you to be. And he doesn't want you to live like that because that's a prison. It's hard to live that way. But on the top of that, it's what hypocrisy does to other people. You talk about millennials, and one of their big criticisms with the church was the hypocrisy of the church. We don't hold ourselves to the standard that we want to hold everybody else to. At least that's the perception. I think a lot of times perceptions are made of all the worst cases that you've ever heard, and you just cram that together if you don't like somebody and just throw that on everybody, in that group. And it might not be true. Because there's a lot of times people say something or I hear something, well, church is like this. I'm like, I ain't like that. I don't see it, not my church. But, our church might be something else. You never know. But as you look at these things, here's the deal. What happens is when we react in hypocrisy, when a hypocrite is representing Jesus, you may have some people that reject the gospel because they think that's the gospel. Hiding behind your mask, doing your sin over here, hoping nobody else knows, and trying to be cool on Sunday. And they'll look through that. Secular people are not stupid. They'll look at that and go, hey, that don't work. I can see that. No, I'm trying to do that right now in my own life. They won't say that. But that's a lot of what's going on. I'm trying to find out what's going to make me okay and everything. Okay, I put up the wall and everybody think I'm cool. But inside at night when it's cold and it's dark and it's late and I can't go to sleep, I'm scared to death because I don't know what's going on with my life. Some people will feel like that. Now you may say, I'm a Christian and I feel like that. Yeah, that's right. The difference is we can own that and we know where to go when we feel like that. And that no matter what we feel like, there is a truth and a reality that God is in control of our lives. God has a plan for our lives. And when we feel hopeless, we can be hopeful because we know all through our life, we trusted God here and He came through. We trusted God here and He came through. We trusted God here and He came through. I didn't want to do it, but I trusted the Lord and He did it and He came through. And all of that stuff stacks up over time. And you can read your Bible and you can see they trusted God and He came through. And they trusted God and He came true. And you go to your church or you go to life group and you know, hey, John trusted God over there. And boy, it didn't look really good, but man, it came through. And over again, that evidence stacks up. And when you are the most defeated, you can say, at least I know I have seen God come through over and over and over. It can happen for me. And when I feel that way, there's somewhere to go. Somewhere to go. And lest anybody have, I didn't want to get into this side of things, but I don't want to make any assumptions. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, hear me when I say this. If you're dealing with clinical depression or something like that, that's a sickness. It is not a failure of you. And you go get help. You go get a counselor, preferably someone who has some background in faith. There are good clinical counselors that are also Christians as well. You tell somebody you're dealing with that, and you go get some help. Do not suffer alone. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in it. You know, and for Pete's sake, do not suffer alone. You know, I tell you what, things that get us, they get us the most in the dark. There's a reason sometimes that we're afraid of the dark because we can't see what's going on. That's where sin thrives. That's where tough stuff thrives. They thrive in the dark. When you bring it out in the light, it'll get a lot better, especially in the light of Christ. But the thing about it is, you know, people will reject the gospel because they think that's what it is. Here's your other side of things. This is the tough part as well. Some people will buy into it and think that's what it is, and they'll receive it, and they'll try to live a Christian life in a hypocritical way. If I just keep my junk away from everybody and they just think I'm cool, that's going to work. And I'm going to tell you, you will crash and burn at some point with that. If that's your mentality, at some point, it's going to crash, it's going to burn for you, and you walk out the doors and go, I tried Christ, and it just wasn't worth it. When you really never did. I love drinking Coke. I hate Mr. Pibb. Mr. Pibb is nasty. Did they even have that anymore? I feel you, brother. Yes. Mr. Pibb is like cough syrup, you know, or something like that. It's nasty. But if you had given me Mr. Pibb and said, this is Coke, and I drank it, I would never have tried Coke ever. Too many times we're giving people the Mr. Pibb of spirituality. I'm sorry if you like Mr. Pibb, but I don't. You know, I'm not offending you with Mr. Pibb. On Facebook, you're probably chugging down a Mr. Pibb. You're like, what? Is this bad? No, it's okay. I just don't like it. It's an illustration. All right, we're good. Okay. All right, so here we go. We're giving people the Mr. Pibb of spirituality, and they're thinking that's what it is, but that ain't what it tastes like. It tastes terrible, and they walk out the door because we told them wrong. We showed them wrong. Maybe somebody else handed us Mr. Pibb, and it tastes terrible. And we're like, okay, that's what Coke's supposed to be. Hey, it's really good. Here, you take it too. You know, my son came with it. This tastes terrible, Dad. Why don't you try it? Okay, yeah, no, that's all right. But you know, sometimes we do that. We just take the faith of our fathers and our grandparents, and nothing against our grandparents. My mother and my father were great people of faith. I appreciated what they did. You know, my dad was not perfect. You know, he probably was a spiritual child in a lot of ways, but I learned a lot from him through his journeys. You know, but so I don't want to belittle that, but I think sometimes we just take that and we think that's it, and sometimes it's not. And God's saying with everyone, I want you to dive deep into me. I want you to dive deep into my word. I want you to know what real life is. I don't want you to fake it. That's the worst, man, to have to fake it. And Jesus is saying, look, I died so that you would not have to fake it. It's good to act like you're smart, but it's even better if you really are. There's a confidence that comes with that. And there's a confidence that comes when we put our faith and trust in Jesus. But you think about how do we love hypocritical people? How do we do that? So hard. Gosh, I see it. Will you just shut up and stop talking? It would be so much easier if you would stop trying to act like you're smart. I know you're not. Stop it. You know, sometimes you feel that way, right? Part of it is you have to think about, why do they feel that way? Why do they do that? You know, earlier in Matthew, Jesus explained to another group of hypocritical religious leaders, imagine how that runs around, of the day. You know, it makes me really scared. Okay, Lord, you know, I just want to make sure I'm right with you. Okay, and when they were wrong on a particular point, and it illustrates two things about hypocrites. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 29, it says, oh, and I put that wrong. It's 29. I'm so sorry about that. Jesus replied, your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures and you don't know the power of God. Here, look here, guys. Here's your problem. Here's where you're wrong, is you don't know the scriptures and you don't know the power of God. What this verse shows is two things that might be happening when you're dealing with someone who's a hypocrite, especially a religious hypocrite. Why do they act like that? One, they really don't know God. It might be true. They may not know the power of God. They may have been somebody just took what they were handed and said, okay, I guess that's it. And they never really introduced Jesus into their life and said, look, I'm going to change whatever I do based on what you say. Lord, come, you change. You tell me what to do and I will do it. I'm here. I am here for you. I want you more than anything else. I want you more than the church. I want you more than the job or the career that I had. You're first in my life. There's never come a point in time that they put him there in that pedestal and they don't know the power of God. You know, in 1 John 2:4, it says, someone claims, I know God, but doesn't obey God's commandments. That person is a liar and is not living in the truth. Just because you come to church doesn't make you a Christian. Honestly, it's more about what you do outside of the church, really. What you do in the other 127 hours of the week. Is that right? 128 in a week? Am I right on that? No, I'm wrong. 7 times 4. 7 times 24, so that'd be 168. So the other 167 hours, 166 and a half hours of the week. That kind of tells what you do, but I'm going to be quite honest with you. If you don't attend church and you don't follow Christ, there's something in your life that you're not following Christ on either, because he said to do that. Okay, so a lot of times we tend to say, well, just because you come to church doesn't make you a Christian. Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm not coming to church because that makes me a Christian. No, it doesn't. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work that way. But sometimes that's kind of how we do. You know, it's like we give more credence to somebody who stands outside of church and says, well, I ain't coming back to church because I'm just a Christian. You know, and that doesn't work that way. You know, I mean, we don't know how to challenge it, but it doesn't work that way. You know, the truth is, they act that way because they don't know God. Just because you say you are somebody, or your dad was a Christian, or whatever, just because that doesn't make you a Christ follower. It's you. It's your relationship with Jesus. The second thing is maybe they don't know better yet. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they're a young Christian and they're being a hypocrite. They're saying, oh, we should do this, and they don't even see it in their life. Or maybe they don't even realize that's what that means. Have you ever done that? You know, somebody, I remember when I was learning tennis, and I'm trying to serve, and when you do this, you feel like you're making a really good serve, and it's not going anywhere. And I remember my tennis teacher, like 7th grade, 8th grade, is Miss Andrews. I said Judy Andrews. Okay, I almost said Julie Andrews. That's not true, Judy. So she said, no, you have to do this. And she took my arm, and I had to scratch my back with the tennis racket. And I'm like, that is so weird. Is that what you mean a tennis serve is? There may be a point in time in someone's life that they're coming along and God is bringing them along, because the truth is we all walk a different road because we start at a different place. We're all going to Jesus, but we all start at a different place. And if I'm going to go to Steve over here and Kirsten's going to go to Steve over here, we're going to walk this way, but we're not going to get there hitting the same steps, right? And sometimes that's what's happening in people's lives. Sometimes they're going along and God says, woo, you got some messed up stuff. We're going to work on this before we ever get over to that. And they just ain't got to that yet. Now you laugh, but that happens to you too. And there's people that look at you and go, well, why are you doing that? It just doesn't make any sense. And what they need to understand is God is working you toward that. As long as you're following Christ, God is working you toward that. Maybe they just don't know better yet. In 1 Corinthians 3:1, Paul talks about the Corinthians. He said, look, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, because you're still mere infants in Christ. The other side of this for us to understand, especially if you're the struggling hypocrite, is if you're going to follow Jesus, your life's going to change. Something's going to go different. You're not going. If you just say, okay, I follow you, Jesus, and you just roll on out there and you're doing the same stuff, the same dance moves you do every week, hey, I'm just telling you, something's going to change if you're truly following Christ. Because you would not have had to accept him if you're going to do everything he would have wanted you to do and take every step that he was going to want you to take. You wouldn't have had to accept him if you were going to do that anyway. And a lot of people think that. They think, I'm right, so obviously Jesus agrees with me. That's not how it goes, okay? You might get lucky and kind of agree with him on some things, but then he's going to take you on over here and you go, what? You mean I got to do that? Yes, and that is coming. And if you're a young Christian or you're new to the faith and you're learning some things and you're going, I don't know if I want to do that. Hey, that's normal, okay? We all fight through that. It's all right. Tell somebody about it. We'll help you. We'll help you work around that. We'll hold you accountable. We'll encourage you. When you're afraid, we'll try to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. You can do it. You can do it. We're right here. You can handle it. It's like when you jump off that diving board the first time. It's better when there's somebody right beside you. Go ahead. Okay. I'm just pushing you. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes we'll help you with that. Sometimes it's a good thing. We won't do it all the time. But some of that needs to happen. Maybe they just don't know better yet. Here's the other thing, and this is the tough part of it. Maybe they know better, but they still disobey God anyway. That's a tough place to be. I think we've all been in that for short periods of time. You're like, you really want me to do that? Ooh, man. And you're in the internal emotion of, oh man, I gotta do that. Okay. No, can't do it. Okay. Oh, no, I'm gonna do it this time. No, I'm not. And sometimes we live in that internal struggle on the inside. And when we see someone being a hypocrite, they're really in that moment. Oh, I gotta do it. I can't step off that. And you're in that moment. The problem is if you stay there, or you get to the point where, okay, well, I'm just not going to do it. And you walk over here and you're not even considering it anymore. That's the problem, because then you're putting your hand up at God. You're not saying, I'm trying, God, I'm trying. And he's standing beside you. Come on. When you just walk off from it, and I'm just not going to live that way. I don't care what you say, God. That's a problem. That's when you're open rebellion to the Lord. And your relationship is damaged with that. Isaiah 59:2 says that our sin hampers our communication with God, because that's when we've chosen, I'm not going to do it. There is a wall that we put up with God. We put a peg in the ground and said, I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. There is weirdness in the family. There's weirdness there. And we can't live in that type of environment forever. We can't. Because there's either one or two things that have happened. One, you really did not accept God at the beginning. You really accept Christ. You didn't mean it that I would do whatever you said, God. Somewhere. And maybe you didn't follow Jesus in the beginning. Or you are so hard-hearted that you're going to experience the worst of that, and the damage is going to extend to the people around you. That's the way this works. But it's worse if you don't follow Jesus. There's got to be a point where you submit and you realize, I'm going to have to put Jesus first. Romans 6:15-16 says, well then, since God's grace has set us free from the law. You realize that, right? It set us free from the law. Does that mean we can go on sinning? Some people think that. Okay, God can forgive me for anything. It's totally okay, right? I can do whatever. Cocaine, it's not a problem. Okay, it's illegal. It's okay, but God's going to forgive me. That's all I got to worry. That's my judge. No. He says, well, then since God's grace has set us free from the law, does that mean we can go on doing cocaine? We can go on stealing? Of course not. Don't you realize that when you become the slave of whatever you choose to obey? You could be a slave to sin, which leads to death. There's a reason that Jesus died, to say, hey, don't do that anymore. You don't need to follow those urges. You don't need to follow that. That's bad stuff. It's because it's going to hurt you in the long run on the earth and throughout eternity. It's not just about hell whenever you think you're going to die. It's about right now. You're in the middle of it when you're moving away from what God has for you. No, don't you realize that you become the slave of whatever you choose to sin? You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to righteous living. One or the other. not both. Don't tear yourself apart trying to follow two masters. It's not going to happen. If you follow Jesus, there's supposed to be a change in the way you do things. If you just keep rolling on like you were, you might want to ask yourself, did I really commit to follow him no matter what? There's a decision point here. I love the early disciples. You know, I love Peter. 1 Peter 2:16. I love the way he said it. For you are free, yet you are God's slaves. So don't use your freedom as an excuse to do evil. Come on. They're like, are you kidding me? We just pulled you out of that tar. Why do you want to go back to it? You know, that's what the early disciples would say to this. You know, when you have been set free from sin, why would you ever want to go back to that prison? So when you run into a hypocrite, what are you supposed to do? Well, Jim, you're telling me, isn't there a Bible verse somewhere that says I can really bust him in front of everybody with a cool zinger line and everybody can like high five me on the way out the door and then somebody's going to like Facebook Live it and put it out there, bust them on Twitter or whatever like that. No, that is not what you do. But you prayerfully confront them. Prayerfully confront them. You may say, oh, that's none of my business. If I can't tell them off and beat them up in case they come after me, I don't want to do it. You know, look, I wouldn't know what to say. What if I'm wrong? You know, I don't want to get too involved in their stuff, you know. And this is what a lot of people do. I think I'll just go over here to the side and talk about them to somebody that I feel real safe with. And I'll say everything that I wish I could say to them. I'll say it much more harsh and funny, and they'll laugh at me and think it's really cool. And then we'll just call it even and I'll walk away. That's called gossip. That's wrong. That's sin. We've already talked about that. We are to prayerfully confront. Jesus, the prophets, the disciples, they all confronted hypocrisy. That's what they did. And it wasn't to get their jollies off, you know, yelling at somebody and, ooh, let me tell you one thing. That's what they do on all the groups, on Palm Bay groups, all the groups, you know, on Facebook. I'm just going to come on here and tell everybody what's wrong. Okay, great. You know, what'd you do? You didn't do anything. You told everybody off. You didn't fix the problem. You didn't do anything except just tell people off, and you get mad, and you're going to tell them off again, and we just keep doing it round and round and round and round and round, and we'll all feel like crap because we've just all read this all negative mess, you know? And yes, I say that because I went on that one time, and I looked at it, and I read it, and I started reading all the comments, and I was like, I feel terrible. I feel horrible. I can't do anything about that. And all of a sudden, God's like, why are you reading that? It's gossip. Quit it. So I did. Maybe we all should. It's difficult. But here, this confrontation of sin, you look at it. In Galatians 6:1, it gives us some cues on how do we confront people. So, dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, and that's what you have to look at it as. They're wrong. They're overcome by sin. They're fooled into thinking that being that way, projecting life, pretending about life, faking life, yet being dead is the way to live. That's not the way to live. It says, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall for the same temptation yourself. Real quickly, it all comes down to this. Why do you confront them? You confront them to help that person get back on the right path, not to tell them off, not to prove you're right. It's not about you being right. It's about you helping somebody else get right. You can look stupid and help somebody else get right, okay? It's not about how you look. It's about how they end up, okay? I think a lot of the times we may start out with, I want to get them right, and we start out and go, I'm going to tell you this and tell you this. We'll straighten you out. And bam, you know, look at you, some of that. There's some wisdom. Get after it. And you need to ask yourself, would you listen to any of that? You look at how I was just then right there. You don't listen to any of that? You know, if I'm telling you that all up in your face and stuff like that. Some of us, we go at people like that, and we actually think they're going to listen to us and go, you know, that was good. That was right. No, they hate your guts because you're being a jerk. Stop being a jerk. I've never had a problem telling people something when I came like this. I've never gone to Steve like this, but I'm just going to use Steve as an example. Steve, let's get some lunch. Can we get some lunch? Steve, I'm going to be honest with you. You are my friend, and I care deeply about you. But I'm really concerned, and I don't want to say this, but I'm going to have to tell you because I love you, man, and I don't want you to get in a mess. If you do, I still will be your friend. But I need to tell you this about your life, and I'm concerned. When I come like that, I've rarely ever had anybody get mad at me because I came, because they got the point that I came. Why? Because I want you to get back right on the right path. I'm worried about you. You come gently, you come humbly. How you do it? Gently and humbly. You come just between the two of you, Matthew 18. Don't sit down, don't vague book about it, don't bust them on Twitter, don't, walk into the mall and go, I know you have sinned, and everybody, let me tell you, this is what we do these days. We go on Facebook and we write a big post about it and we get 55 people to like it. So then we can feel good that we're right, and so I'm right. And we think in our minds, they're going to read that and they'll know it's about them. It's because I put in there, you know who you are. And because I put that in there, really, nobody's going to get that. You're not trying to help them get on the right path. You're trying to make yourself feel better. Stop being selfish. Get on the right path. Get people on the right path is hard. It's not easy. You get on the right path. How you do it gently and humbly. You don't bang them in the head with stuff. You come with concern. I'm concerned about you. You come to them. You should do it that way, just between the two of you. Matthew 18 says, just between the two of you. If that doesn't work, go get somebody you both respect. Then sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And you go with kind of a moderated attitude. You get this person that comes in, you want them to be wise, and you say, okay, this is what I'm seeing in Joe's life. I love you, Joe, but I'm just using Joe. Just using your name. And Joe goes, well, yeah, but it's kind of like this. And this person stands there and goes, okay, I'm seeing that, but here's some of the problems. I'm seeing both of you guys right here, and I'm kind of seeing what's going on. I'm seeing what you're telling me. I'm seeing what you're telling me. Here's a better way to go about this. And you hope out of that, if it didn't happen when you're just you two, that becomes better. Out of that, past that, then you come get the leaders of the church involved. A lot of people want to call me and go, hey, so-and-so made me mad. Fix it, Jim. I can't do that. Did you go talk to him? No, I ain't going to do that, man. I might get mad with him. Well, then you need to pray it up and go suck it up and do what you need to do, because I can't help you yet because of Matthew 18. I can tell you what to do. You need to go do that. Because if I jump in right now, I'm subverting God's process. I'm taking over what God said to do, and I don't want to get in that sin that says, okay, all right, I'm going to jump in here. God, excuse me, but I'm the pastor of the church. Let me fix this. I don't ever want to do that. That's stupid. I make it worse. I've tried it before. It does not work. That's how you should do it. The third thing is you realize there's a danger. What is the danger? I was a guy when I was in college. I was sang in a group. It's like one of those choral groups, where you all got mics. Back in the day, if you've been around church a long time, there was a group called Truth. They were like boy bands without dancing, and stuff. And so they would stand with mics and they would all sing. It'd be harmony. It'd be really cool. So I would doing that, but there was this guy who was the director of our group, and he was really good. He could tell, he picked good music, it was good arrangements and all this stuff, and you got to do cool stuff, except when he started to sing with you. Oh my goodness. It was like a wailing goat. In the key of Farfignugan. I don't even know what it was. And I would sit there and I would go, we would get through with something. He's got this smile on his face, and I'm like, oh, did you not hear that? Did you not hear what you did to God's music? Oh my goodness. And I would never do it because he's the nicest guy in the world, but he couldn't hear how he sounded. It reminds me of a story in the Old Testament. King David had committed adultery with Bathsheba, right? He'd done the wrong thing. Then to cover that up, kind of like the lie thing, the whole lie trail, he had to murder her husband, like in a covert way, so nobody could see it, kind of real sneaky, conniving way. That's what you have to do sometimes. That when you're living by the lie, that's what it has to happen, and it just makes it worse. And he killed this guy out on the battlefield in a real covert way. His hands were clean. Had his guy kind of do something that put him in a bad situation, got him killed. And all of this stuff, and he brought her, I'm going to play the savior. Oh, my general got killed. I'll bring her into my house to be my wife and all stuff. We'll take care of her. Ooh, And so he thought he'd all covered it up. But it didn't. See, God called his prophet. His prophet Nathan. And Nathan showed up at his house to tell him a story. And you love it. In 2 Samuel 12, verse 5, it says, verse 5 says, David burnt, and what happened is Nathan told him a story about this guy that had a bunch of sheep. I didn't tell you that part. Guy had a bunch of sheep, and then there was this poor guy that just had one sheep. And the guy with a bunch of sheep needed to kill a sheep to feed some of his friends for one of his weekly parties. And he didn't want to kill any of his sheep, so I'll just go take this dude's one sheep that he loved to death. They thought he raised from a tiny little, lamb up. And I'm just going to take that sheep and take it away. I'll just eat that and we'll be done with it. I'll take the poor guy's one sheep. He told him that story. In verse 5, David just burned with anger against the man. He said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lived, that man who did this must die. He must pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, you're that man. The danger in confronting someone who is struggling is pride. Because pride masks all your junk. And you don't have to deal with it because you're better than they are. That's the danger. When you're focusing on the sin of others, you're most susceptible to pride by comparison. When you are most condemning is often the reflection of wherever you are most condemning is often the reflection of where you are most vulnerable. When you're dealing with someone who's in sin, you are most ripe to fall victim to pride and become the judgmental hypocrite yourself. Pride comes before a fall. What do you do if you realize you're the hypocrite? I love what David did. David's a great songwriter. I wish I was as good as he was, but I'm not. That's why I'm not like recording records and doing stuff like that and writing for people. I'm not that good. But he wrote in Psalm 51 in response to this, he said, look, create in me a pure heart, O God. He went back to God. And renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of my salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. If the hypocrite is you return to God. It's simple. That should be the easy part. Repentance is freedom, not punishment. Admitting you're wrong is a breath of fresh air. Admitting it to God who loves you. And no matter what, and he goes, I knew it anyway. Great, you know you're wrong. Boom, now we can do some stuff in your life. We remove the wall of weirdness that's in our family. Return to God. He isn't out to get you. Show up. That's the part for us. And there may be times in our life where God tells us that, hey, there is sin in your life. You've got to do that. There may be a time, and I'm going to be honest with you, maybe there's a person here that's never accepted Christ, and I'm going to say something very hard. But I want you to know it's because I love you. And I'm afraid that if I don't say what I say in this venue, when the Lord telling me to do this, I'm afraid that I'm going to be doing the wrong thing by you. You were made to have a wonderful life, connected to a God that has the answers and the resources for you to glorify Him to other people. That's what you were made to do. If you're not doing that, if you've never started with a relationship with Christ, I don't mean this to be mean in any way, but you're kind of the worst kind of hypocrite. Because you're trying to be all that you were meant to be, and you know you're not. And the answer is so easy. The option is right there. And it's simply to say, okay, yeah, I am screwed up. I am screwed up. God, I am screwed up. I messed it up. But can you fix it? Can you fix me? I want to give all this crap that I've made. You made me this beautiful little baby, and then I spent all this time making a bunch of crap. And I know it's not very pretty, but will you have it? And will you fix me? I believe Jesus is your son. I believe He came and He died. He lived a perfect life. And I know that my crap deserves death. I mean, if I did something cool for somebody like that and they did what I did to it, I would be mad too. I don't blame you. But I'm thankful that you love me anyway. So I want to accept your son. He is my Lord. I trust in you for that, and I want to follow you with the rest of my life. That's where it is. And that's where you begin to start being who you were meant to be. That's where it starts. And until that happens in your life, there's always going to be the wrong at the bottom of the barrel that makes everything tough. And I'm not telling you when you follow Jesus that there's never going to be anything that's tough in your life. There's not going to be anything tough in your life again. But the difference is that the foundation has now changed. And God can take the crap that you made and turn it into something amazing that you're proud to say, look at what I did, but look at what God did with it. Woo! And he can do it for you. And there's a freedom in that. God said, I want that for you. Let's pray. God, I thank you for all that you've done. I thank you for the way you care for us and the way you love us. Lord, I thank you for what you've done for us on the cross. And I thank you for the way that you have presented the gospel to us. God, you've given us that good news. It's enough. It is the best news ever. Lord, that you came and you died and you took my punishment and I don't have to take it. And I did all the wrong. You did none of it. And you satisfied the law. Lord, you did. God, thank you for that. There will never be enough thank yous to make that right between us and you. Oh, but God, I'm so glad that you will accept the thank you that I have and love me anyway. And I pray for anyone out there who's not made this decision. Lord, I pray that today is the day. Lord, I pray that today is the day that they begin to follow you and they experience your salvation in their life. And that things are different. And they're better and they're right. Lord, in your name we pray.
Thanks for being a part of Bay West today. Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. Please feel free to check us out at baywestchurch.org, or you can follow us on Facebook at Bay West Church.